Hello, I'm Richard Shaw and I'm standing as an independent candidate at the forthcoming parliamentary elections for the Erewash constituency. And on Monday of this week, that's the 11th of November, I gave a talk at the Smoothie Bar in Ilkeston to introduce the basis upon which I'm standing. So I'm going to reproduce that now so that you can have some idea too of why I'm standing in this election, what my message is and what I hope to achieve. So what I said on Monday was very influenced by the fact that it was Armistice Day, the 11th of November, and also the day after Remembrance Sunday. And also there was something happening in the heavens that I thought might be of interest. So today is Armistice Day and yesterday was Remembrance Sunday. And on both occasions a 2-minute silence was observed. And I wasn't aware until hearing an interview with the playwright Neil Bartlett on the radio yesterday, that the 2-minute silence was initially thought of as having two parts. So the first part was intended as a reflection on war. But then the second part was to look forward or to think about what peace might look like and how we might move towards it. Peace and reconciliation, and perhaps some penitence too. So in his interview, Neil spoke about how it seems so much easier to reflect on images of war than to conjure forth scenarios of how peace would work, if more fully developed. So he carried out his own research during the course of last year, going around the country asking peace workers what they understood by peace. And he discovered, perhaps not surprisingly, that there were as many different views of that as there were people he spoke to. But there was one thing that was essentially the same in all of them, and that was about talking and listening, speaking and listening. So the question is, how do we do that? And it seems like it ought to be easy, we do it all the time, and yet somehow it isn't. Not in the ways that he was speaking about and those people he had interviewed were speaking about. So in a way, this is, it seems to me, what politics is aching for, or those who observe politics are asking for. It's what we want to see. But beyond that, it also seems like it's what the circumstances themselves are telling us we need to do. And do better, regardless of anything else, really. There's one other thing, actually, which I thought was of at least quirky interest, and that was that on Monday, at about the time that I was giving this talk, there was a heavenly event in that Mercury was completing its transit across the Sun. Something that happened last in 2016 and I think is due to happen again in 2032 or something like that. So not extremely rare, but also not common. And Mercury, or Hermes, according to Greek legend, was the messenger of the gods. So, is there a message from the gods in all this? Well, that's just something to toy with as an idea. But to go back to the thing about speaking and listening, working together more, and how there is, I think, more and more a public mood and requirement that politicians and others do this, for all our sakes, they are also, I think, aware of it. The politicians are themselves also aware of it. I've heard interviews recently where this has become really apparent. So I think we should encourage that, and we should ask what processes and procedures might help that. Because they're going to need every encouragement to actually be able to do this and to stick to their brief in this respect when the going gets tough. Because the culture that makes things as they are is very strong, and it's going to want to perpetuate itself because that's how cultures are, and old habits die hard. So it's a familiar story and one that contains its own message, but that doesn't mean that the past is inescapable, that we have to keep going down the same routes. The question must be how we move more towards the future and allow the future, if I can put it like this, to move more towards us. And again, look at our present circumstances to see what they are telling us, what they are saying about how we need to move towards the future. And they are telling us we need to do more and better in terms of listening, really listening. But if this is what we hope for from our politicians, then we also have to be a bit insistent. We have to say, we have to give them a mandate, and we have to say to them, this is what we expect now. And we're going to be monitoring you, actually. We're going to be seeing how you do, and we're going to be saying what we think of what you do. So if we are to send a mandate, and this is it, and this is to be it, then we also need to be willing and able to hold the people, not hold them accountable, but make them responsible, really, for carrying out our wishes. And as far as possible, ensuring that they do. Because it won't be enough to send this message. It will also be necessary to, or it would be preferable, to have at least one person there who is carrying this message and also who is present in the House of Commons, in Parliament, to do his or her best to ensure that that is followed up on. I wish there were others like me in other constituencies who could fill this role. As far as I'm aware, there aren't. There may be other independent candidates who think like I do, and there may be some kind of alliance formed, I don't know. But at the moment I'm aware of only myself with this particular message and offering this particular means of sending it. And here in Erewash, just to say a little bit about myself, my background is in the law and working with the learning disabled, and mediation, and more recently counselling. And in a way, all of those things come together here in this stance I'm now taking and in this message I'm trying to convey. I've seen both the usefulness of adversarial procedures and also the damage they do. The way, for example, that being in a court case disrupts lives and drains resources, emotional and financial, as well as human, almost to vanishing point. So that alone is food for thought, and we need to move increasingly towards more collaborative approaches. It's the way of the future, and it's the message the future is trying to send to us now. So I would have liked to appear on the ballot paper as the, open single quotes, all of the above, close single quotes, candidate. That would have been to encourage voters not to spoil their ballot papers by writing none of the above, however much they may have felt moved to do that, or by staying away to register their protest, or because they're simply demoralised and disillusioned, but rather to have a valid way of offering a more positive response to the situation by voting all of the above, without also spoiling their ballot papers by doing that, because as things stand, obviously, to put such an inscription on the papers would simply be to waste the vote and spoil the papers. But by voting all of the above, you're simply saying, actually, we think you all have something to offer. We think you all have much to bring that's of value, but we just want you to work together better to bring that out and to be able to respond to circumstances and situations in such a way that it serves better the needs of the situation and the needs of all of us. And I don't think we can do that without working better together and being less partisan. So it's my task now to help you to link my name with this aim, with this purpose and intention. And I hope that this recording and other events over the remainder of the campaign will help to make that more possible, so that you will know what you're voting for on December the 12th by voting for me. And it's not just voting for me, it's about voting for what I stand for. I think that this captures the public mood, a particular mood and a particular requirement at the time. And I hope you will also think otherwise, feel the same, and be moved to vote to show that by your vote. So this isn't a gimmick, this campaign. This is serious and in deadly earnest, because I really do feel that things are that momentous and change is really needed. Everybody says vote for change, vote for me, but change of a different order is now needed. And it needs to come from our awareness of what is happening and our view of what seems to be needed. So that's what I'm trying to respond to, and I hope it may also speak for what is important to you and important to us all at this time. Thank you. I want to go back to Neil Bartlett and what he had to say, because that also seems so important. So I'm going to quote from him now what he said. This was on The World this weekend on Radio 4 at Sunday lunchtime. And he was being interviewed by Mark Mardell. And he said the message from all the peace workers is that we have to sit down with our opponents and listen. Really listen. Not just wait for them to shut up until it's our turn to speak again, but really listen to what they are saying. He also asked, why is war a verb and peace a noun? Because almost everyone agrees that peace also is action, is process, is starting in one place and seeing if you can patiently get to another one. It's not some shiny mirage in the distance. But going back to Neil, what he said in his own words was, he spoke about his own overwhelming hunger for peace in this November, when there is so much conflict of various kinds raging in this country. However, it's not all gloom, because he also came away from his consultation process with the peace workers with a profound and real hopefulness. And in conclusion, he said this: if we want peace, the people who know how to get it are all around us, and they have been working for it all their lives, all their working lives, and they know about how to do this. We just have to create the space to listen to what they are telling us. And that is the message we now wish to send as an electorate to our politicians. I simply want to enhance and facilitate the possibilities for you to do so. Thank you.